Joining me now, the senior legal advisor to the Trump campaign, Jenna Ellis. Jenna, thanks for being with us.
Good morning.
Lots to talk about today, Jenna. I want to start. I've been focused on reopening schools all day. You know what? I thought the Democrats were the party of education. They want to fund education. They want more education. They want to pay teachers more. Democrats are supposed to be the party for education. Now they want to keep your kids at home shuttered so they can't learn. I guess your kids are now just collateral damage in order to keep the economy from growing, keep moms and dads from going back to work, no back to school supplies. So your kids are just what, collateral damage in order to beat Trump? Is that what the deal is now?
Well, the Democrats are, of course, the party of anti-Donald Trump. That's all that they can possibly contemplate anymore. It's like whatever Donald Trump wants to do, they just go the opposite direction. If he was saying, you know what, we need to keep schools closed in the fall, they would take the opposite perspective. They're not principled. They aren't thinking through rationally. They don't want to have a policy consideration. They're not looking at what's in the best interest for families and kids. They are simply concerned about their own power. And so, of course, they're going to use children, unfortunately, as collateral damage, like you said. And, President Trump is wise to implement the policies and suggestions and recommendations that he has from the federal side. And, of course, he's moving forward with things that are actually genuinely for Americans and just ignoring the Democrats who have been the party of obstruction. And, that's really what the 2020 election is about, is either you're for America, you are for freedom and liberty and, getting us back to the greatest economy in the world and America first and the opportunity for all that we so enjoy in this country, or you're for just Democrat power and they'll use anything they can as a political tactic, and Joe Biden's handlers. That's really the bottom line.
So Biden stays in the basement, says nothing. How does he have this lead in the polls?
Well, we learned in 2016 how much Hillary Clinton really had the lead in the polls. So I don't personally put much stock in the mainstream media polls because they're so easily manipulated, and frankly, most of the polls underrepresent Republican voters. They also underrepresent actual likely voters and registered voters as opposed to just polling adults. I mean, there are so many different things that can and do go wrong with polls that are designed to generate an outcome. Our internal polling at the campaign shows something far different because, unlike the Democrats, we're actually concerned about fact and truth, and we want to know genuinely what's going on. And we see, just a wide margin of motivation behind President Trump. And actually, if you look at the primaries as well and the difference in numbers of what percentage came out and how much in the primaries that was uncontested, people came out and voted for President Trump comparatively with the re-election years of George Bush, as W. Bush, and then also Barack Obama. President Trump got so many more votes in those primaries, and that tells a far different story, and that's fact, and that's actually data that we can look at, not just conjecture at the polls. And so, for people who are concerned about that, I would just say, that should motivate you even more. Make sure that you are showing up at the polls on Election Day and voting for this president because there's so much motivation behind him. The American people love him. They want the American First agenda, and we'll just prove the polls wrong yet again in 2020.
You look at the polls right now, Jenna, with everything going on, whether it be protests, riots, COVID-19, economy down. I think they've just reached bottom. Now there's nowhere to go but up. And I think as the economy comes back, the president continue to get stronger and stronger. So I'm looking forward to that. Let's talk about the convention in Florida. A lot of people now saying that because Florida's reopened, they got all these cases that the convention might get canceled. It should go virtual. It's a health hazard. I'm a convention delegate. So is my wife. We plan on going. We already got our tickets and everything to get down there, Jenna. But
well, I will see you there. So we have no plans at this point to cancel or move it online or anything like that. And if you look at the ability to safely implement social distancing, things that people who want to come will show up, and you don't have to come if you don't want to. But for those of us who understand that we're we're able to safely gather, this is something that can and should move forward.
Jenna, let's talk about the number of cases coming up in Florida, Texas, Arizona, some of these southern states, versus the mortality rate. Fauci gets on TV yesterday and says, it's a false narrative to say the mortality rate is down. The mortality rate now is we're losing about 300 people a week from COVID. You divide that by 7 days, about 35 a day. We were losing thousands a day. Now it's down to 35. And then the vast majority of those that we're losing over the age of 85 compromised health. If you look at the number of healthy younger people that souls lost from COVID-19, it's under regular influenza. That just happens in a normal cycle of civilization. I mean, it's infinitesimal. So, but then Fauci comes on and he's saying, hey, it's a false narrative. It isn't about how many people die. It's about, it's just about getting sick. Yet 90% of the people that get this is either mild or it's asymptomatic. Can you reconcile this for us? Because the fake news is having a field day with this.
Well, of course. And, the Democrats, again, are using the coronavirus as a pretext to try to continue to hamper the economy, to try to, push this false narrative that President Trump was not responsive or that, he's to blame for what happened in New York, which was clearly Governor Andrew Cuomo's fault in terms of implementing the CDC guidelines and recommendations in a way for his community that obviously caused a disaster in New York and was the biggest source of loss that Americans experienced there in New York. And so, because of we know so much more about the virus, we know that it impacts the at-risk populations. But for the majority of the rest of us who are not in that specific at-risk category, there's mild to no symptoms. And so, as President Trump has continued to say, because we have more and more testing, then the cases that are now being included even include those who have antibodies. And so that's not necessarily a new case. It's a newly discovered previous case. Mm-hmm. And so when you look at the numbers and when you look at the data, you have to see what is the data actually showing, not just how the fake news mainstream media is describing it. We're moving forward through this pandemic. We're coming out on the other side of it. President Trump and the task force has been right there every step of the way, putting out the guidelines with the best information that we have at the time. And it's my understanding as well, the task force will be briefing the American people at 11:30 Eastern today. So looking forward to that. And I hope that they'll also clarify, some of those things that, we've seen from Fauci and others in the recent days.
Well, the task force is coming up. Is it the president and the vice president, or is it Fauci and Birx? Who is
I
coming
don't have that information, and, that's up to the White House. And so I will just leave it as, we got the briefing. It'll be the task force, and that'll be who the White House chooses.
Well, every time the president says something, Fauci runs over to CNN and disputes it. I mean, I'm just sick of the guy. I just got to be honest with you, Jenna. I know he's part of the task force, but there's a lot of us that are just sick of him. We don't trust him. He changes his position on a daily basis, whatever fits the narrative. But I understand the position that all of us are in with it, as he is part of the president's task force on that. Although I did notice that they stopped him from going on TV on Sunday, which was a good thing. He's a doctor. Let him give his advice. I don't think it's. I'm kind of sick and tired of the Anthony Fauci TV show, to be honest. Jenna Ellis with us.
These two books won't have any impact whatsoever. I mean, they're from disgruntled people who clearly have an agenda against President Trump. I don't think anyone cares. We don't even hear about the Bolton book anymore. And Mary Trump's book is just rantings of a disgruntled niece that nobody really cares about. And I think we'll move forward, and we won't even be talking about this in another week.
All right, thank you. I understand you have to
Thank
go.
you.
I will see you again on my show, and I'll see you in Florida at the end of August in Jacksonville.
Sounds
Jenna,
good.
thank you.
Thanks so much.